It's the Final Word Daily, day 11 of this World Cup in the UAE. Adam Collins and Matt Roller on co-hosting the bill on the Final Word with me today. Thank you to Daniel Norcross and Izzy Westbury for doing a sterling job yesterday. As you can see from the condensation coming out of my mouth, it's cold now in the UK. Not quite big coat weather, but certainly weather enough to be wearing my Dulwich Hamlet scarf. Matt, welcome to the show. Not cold where you are, where there was a double-header today at Sheikh Zayed Stadium. Are you enjoying your first trip away from home covering international cricket?
Yeah, it's been brilliant. Thanks, Colo. Thanks for having me back on. Yeah, really good. Loving the World Cup so far. It's been a pretty weird tournament. You kind of wouldn't know it was happening from most of the time out here. My hotel sports bar has every channel in the available in the UAE apart from the one showing the cricket. So that's the sort of thing we're dealing with out here. But yeah, no, it's been really good. Lots of trips back and forth up the motorway to Sharjah, which is quite nice to return to the spiritual home of match fixing. And yeah, it's been good fun. Looking forward to sinking my teeth into the last couple of weeks of the comp.
Well, for the first part, let's get our teeth stuck into what we've seen today at Sheikh Zayed. I'll do the first game in 30 seconds. We're going to do the second game first, though. We'll come back to the first game later. That's where Pakistan secured their entry into the semi-finals with a comfortable 5-wicket victory over Namibia. They only made 49 in the first 10, but maybe 59 actually. But they put their foot down in the second 10 to add 130, including 71 in the last 5. Rizwan and Hafiz teeing off. Rizwan actually hit 24 in the final over to get them up to 189. Namibia were never really in the hunt, but they kept swinging to their immense credit. David Visa was not out, 42 at the end. They finished on 144 for 5 and accounted for themselves nicely. Pakistan are into the semis. Matt Roller and net run rate, even though they didn't get a big boost from that today, it probably won't matter because they're cruising through to first place.
Yeah, they're absolutely flying, aren't they? Yeah, what a side they are at the moment, and they look like they're having so much fun as well, which is really nice. Something that you quite often don't see at World Cups where teams are under such intense pressure. But yeah, you could see a bit of Babar, bit of camaraderie with his bowlers as well in that run chase. Kind of a low key type of a game, pressure off for the most part, especially with the ball. I think they knew they'd done enough when Rizwan accelerated at the end after some pretty steady going for most of the innings. But yeah, I think Pakistan already looking like, I think them and England, I think that's the combination a lot of people are thinking about for the final. And yeah, bring it on as far as I'm concerned. I think that would be probably the game between the best two teams in the comp as we've seen so far, both 4 from 4. And yeah, what a story it would be if Pakistan get over the line with all their history of coming out and playing in the UAE, benefiting from the exile of international cricket in Pakistan. So many likeable players in their team as well, like the Harris Ralph story. How can you not get sucked in by that? He'd not even bowled with a hard cricket ball 4 years ago, and here he is bowling heat in the World Cup. And yeah, great team to watch, fun team to watch, and yeah, look really good. They've laid down a marker, I suppose, for the rest of the comp in those first 4 games. Yeah,
absolutely, and not just Harris Ralph's quicker bowling, by the way. It's his slower ball that continually gets wickets. But let's come to their bowling in a moment. It was the batting, the 113-run stand between Babar Azam and Mohammad Rizwan. The second time they've put on 100 in this competition. Babar making 70 off 49, and then Rizwan teeing off, as I mentioned, at the end, hitting 24 in that final over, just to put a cherry on top. It was interesting they sent Hafiz in at number 4, really, which meant that the in-form Asif Ali was overlooked to come in, despite the fact that they had laid such a good platform. But it just reinforces that Rizwan is a player with so many gears to shift up and down as and when.
Yeah, it wasn't too dissimilar an innings as a team to England's one last night. Rizwan almost playing the sort of Joss Buttler role, I guess, in that went along at a run of ball. I think he was something like 44 or 40 balls. He didn't have as much of the strike as Buttler did, but he was something like 44 or 40. Buttler was 50 off 45 last night, and yeah, both of them showed their gears at the back end. I think for Rizwan, the question will be whether he can accelerate in quite the same way against the best attacks later in the competition. I suppose you could possibly ask the same question of Buttler, although I think he showed with those couple of dingers off Mitch Starc and Devine at the weekend that he's no slouch. But yeah, I think that opening pair have just stuck to that game plan throughout the competition, really. You think of that partnership against India where it was never really in any doubt, that run chase. And yeah, batting first, it kind of felt like throughout the game actually that Pakistan were almost experimenting and looking forward to the knockout stages by choosing to bat, which has gone against the trend in the tournament. Just trying themselves out, putting themselves in some interesting scenarios or whatever. Hafiz, probably hadn't had quite the impact on the comp he would have liked so far. So good for him to hit a few boundaries at the death. Didn't even need a Seif, as you say, and 189 for 2 was never really going to be hauled in by Namibia, barring a miracle. I wonder if they could have been a tiny bit more attacking right at the start and given that extra over to Ruben Trumpelman, the sort of I've been calling him the left arm Kyle Jameson. I don't know if that's a fair comparison, but if they'd given Trumpel the extra over at this top, I should say, who knows? Could have been a completely different game. It was a bouncy pitch. It kind of suited him at the start, but not to be for them tonight. But I'm sure they've gained plenty from the experience regardless.
If you keep describing him like that on Cricinfo, it's going to stick, I assure you. Zane Green, I don't want to overlook the great catch to remove Fakhar Zaman, who's yet to really fire in the tournament as yet, but what a luxury for Pakistan that Fakhar, who's been such a force across white ball formats, well, really the last 4 or 5 years now, is someone they can turn to in the latter half of the competition. I suppose when they elected to bat first today, he and Hafiz were the two they would have wanted to have found runs out of. It worked for Hafiz, it didn't work for Fakhar Zaman, but a lovely bit of wicket keeping, and underscores the point, Matt, that Namibia have made it through almost unexpectedly, I suppose unexpectedly if you look at it in the context of the qualification tournament back in 2019 to this Super 12 stage. They have beaten Scotland while they've been here, and they are going to leave this competition when it's all over with an enhanced reputation, certainly.
Yeah, 100%. And you hear a lot of the usual cliches go round about associates, don't they? The sort of pointless games or whatever. I don't think that's fair at all. I think those guys have learned so much from it, and just some of the personal stories as well. It's such a small cricketing nation. It's a small nation in the first place. I think it's only 2.5 million people in population, which is half of Ireland, something like that. Mm-hmm. So pretty tiny scale. But you've got stories coming out. Like I think the word going around at the moment is that Gerhard Erasmus, the captain, sort of turned down the opportunity to fly home before the comp and get finger surgery because he bust one of his digits in the warm-up games. So the fact he's still out here, and I think he hit a big 6 at one point tonight, and giving his all, diving around on the boundary rope. The fact he's doing that, captaining the side from number 4, all this stuff, it's good stuff. And I saw after their game against Afghanistan as well, Lofty Eaton, the sort of all-rounder, quick leg spinner, whatever you want to call him. I think he's only about 20. I saw he was getting some tips from Rashid Khan. So it's that sort of thing that we see all the time in franchise cricket now, and maybe take for granted in bigger countries. But for guys who won't have had that exposure or anything like that exposure, the ability to just pick the brains of like a genuinely world-class bowler like Rashid after a game is brilliant. And I suppose there's a danger in all this stuff that it sounds patronising, but I hope that people understand that it's such a small cricketing nation that to have come as far as they have in the last even 3 or 4 years since getting ODI status has been amazing. And I think puts them in a really good spot heading into another World Cup next year. Yeah,
that's really well summed up. Erasmus at one stage looked like he was going to tee off, but was out for 15 when Shadab got him out, and it was kind of game over at that stage. Williams, 40 from 37. He's had a good competition overall, and Wisa, I already mentioned, making 43, not out from 31 with a couple of sixes. 1 wicket each for Hassan, Imad, Rauf and Shadab Khan, a run out in there as well. Let's move on to the first game that was played today. Matt Roller, I'm going to give you the unenviable task of describing the whole thing as brief as it was in 30 seconds.
Right, so South Africa bowl first. It's a green pitch. It looks like the sort of thing you get at Chester Street in Durham's first county game of the season on April 3 or something like that. Bangladesh decide to leave out their best bowler, the Fizz, and their best player Shakib is injured. Rabada and Norkia basically crank it up, finish with 3 each, bowling pure heat. Bangladesh hit 4 fours and a 6, I think, in their whole innings, get bounced out. A couple of real snorters in there from Nokia, especially the one that got Mamadula, and South Africa knocked the runs off fairly unconvincingly, but even still managed to get a decent net run rate boost, which puts them in a good space to finish second.
Nicely done. So Bangladesh all out for 84. South Africa made it 4 wickets down in 13.3 overs, so they won with 39 balls to spare. Rabada, Nokia and Pretorius took 8 for 39 between them from 11.2 overs, and that's the game right there. Something about Bangladesh and facing extreme pace, and look, Rabada isn't bowling he isn't bowling as quickly as we've seen him bowl at different points of his career, but in concert with Nokia, and then Pretorius playing a very useful role as the third seamer, they're not completely out of this competition. You mentioned the net run rate factor here, Matt. It is plausible, and Dan Norcross made this point on Twitter, that Australia could get bundled out quite quickly, even if they win all of their games from here, purely because South Africa have gone so nicely in terms of their net run rate.
Yeah, and it'll be really interesting to see that last game they play against England, because obviously England don't have a whole lot to play for and could well have been locked in as group winners by the time that game happens, so long as they're not thrashed at least. I don't think it's England's style to make 4 changes and take their foot off the pedal, but the fact that South Africa will be going to what we know can be a high scoring venue, quite a volatile venue, and a venue where the toss has been really important, especially a night game. Saturday is a night game. There are some ingredients there that mean that South Africa could, I suppose it would be a relative surprise at this point if they beat England. It wouldn't be like a huge upset, but I think given how England have started, it would count as something of a shock at least. If they can win that game, that's absolutely huge. And equally, I don't think it's guaranteed that Australia are going to beat Bangladesh and West Indies by any means. I think Bangladesh looked really poor today. I think they've shown enough signs in the comp that they've got half a chance if the toss goes their way and things go right against Australia. But more importantly, I think that West Indies team, especially after their tight win against Bangladesh in Sharjah, they've got so much to prove after their terrible start to the comp as defending champions. I really think that they're a side capable of beating Australia. So, very interesting to see what happens from here. I kind of feel like both Australia and South Africa are actually pretty much generic quarterfinal type teams for a standard World Cup, but obviously we don't have quarterfinals here, so one of them is probably going to end up going to the semis. But interested to see what happens. But South Africa have done their chances. No harm at all with that result today. Yeah, one team's going to get through to the semis and get absolutely pulverised by Pakistan in the semi-final, I would imagine. But look, in fairness to Bangladesh, after exploding with the bat, and they were genuinely bounced out, weren't they? They did have at one stage South Africa 33 for 3 after 5.5 overs. Good to see Taskin in the team and taking wickets, bowling at pace. I remember visiting his house a number of years ago, and all the memorabilia on the wall and all that focus on his pace, getting his chance and taking it with 2 early wickets. Mehedi Hassan knocking over Quinton de Kock after making 27 off 25. I think Mehedi, if not for him, they would have been all out for 60. So they've still got match winners there. And you're right about the Australia matchup, given that they did beat them 4-1 in a bilateral series only 3 or 4 months ago. Yes, that wasn't the full strength Australian team, but there is that psychological edge there. And look, if it is South Africa who get through, I think the way it goes is if they beat England, then it won't matter what Australia do from here. Something like that. So it does mean that South Africa still have their destiny in their own hands to an extent, whereas Australia now, due to net run rate, are sort of playing in a slightly different field at this stage inside that group. But it does feel like with South Africa, look, they've not been convincing, but they do look like the second most likely team in this group, even having lost their first game to Australia on the opening day of the tournament. Yeah, they're quite a weird side, aren't they, in a lot of ways, because it feels like they've very rarely managed to actually put a complete performance together so far in this comp, and sort of more generally in T20 cricket over the last however many years. But you look down the batting lineup, and I think Quinton de Kock has not really come off in this World Cup, but we know what a destructive player he is. Aiden Markram's been in great form. Rassie van der Dussen, I don't think I think he's maybe slightly misunderstood. I think he's got really big gears at the end. I think he's a really good hitter against pace bowling, and because of the fact his sort of overall strike rate isn't that great, he's sometimes categorised as like an anchor or whatever. I think he's maybe got a few more gears than that. And yeah, they changed things around a little bit today. I think that was just to try and boost that run rate, and ended up shifting Bavuma down to 5. So interesting to see how that goes. But yeah, equally, if he ends the tournament as a specialist captain, not contributing much with the bat, we've seen in previous tournaments. I think Paul Collingwood in 2010, and I think Chandimal didn't get any runs when Sri Lanka won it. Sammy didn't do a huge amount in 2016 when West Indies won it. So who knows? Maybe it's a strategic decision to try and get himself, try and keep that streak going. If captain's not actually doing a huge amount with bat or ball, but pulling off a tournament win regardless.
Yeah, but he did come in at a tough time today. So Bavuma finishes 31 not out from 28 balls, and Van der Dussen made 22. I mentioned before they ended up comfortable winners by 6 wickets. Heavy. We're going to next do the Hall of Fame before rounding out the show. The Woodstock Cricket Hall of Fame. Get your consultation today. Hit them up. If you're in Australia or another part of the world, you can do that via Zoom. They can work with you and collaborate with you about the best possible bat. They are the best cricket bats in the world. woodstockcricket.co.uk. And as you'll see in the show notes, 20% off by popping in TFW20 in the price bar. Tell Jono we sent you, and he'll look after you if you're a part of the final word. Heavy, I'm going to go to you first. What was your moment of the day that you want to nominate for the Hall of Fame?
Well, my moment of the day happened about 20 minutes ago at the time of recording. So it was during the final over of Namibia's failed chase. Just an all-round great moment. We have Shaheen Afridi, destroyer of India's, much vaunted, much heralded top order. He gets absolutely hooned for this massive 6 by David Visa onto the grass bank. Then there's this group of maybe 8, 10, 12 people scrambling around. First of all, they're trying to catch it, then they're trying to sort of field it on the half volley, and then they're just trying to nick the ball all together. So there's this one girl in a sort of shalwar kameez. She's absolutely buzzing. She's chuffed to bits with the fact she's got this ball. She's sort of holding it around like this, and she's about to take it home. And then someone informs her that she's going to have to throw the ball back in, and she's absolutely devastated. I did hear, apparently that was a genuine idea before the 100, that you should be able to take the ball home like you could in sort of American sports if someone sends one into the crowd. So maybe that's something for the ICC to consider in future years. But just a brilliant, perfect moment, and that it was a dead part of the game, but still something to bring a smile to your face.
A very appropriate nomination. I'm going to pop in there Nassim Ahmed. He gave us one of the great moments of this competition. The first day where crowds were really there at Sharjah, taking a wicket in the first over. Well, today he gave us another in front of about 4 spectators at Abu Dhabi when he smashed his own stumps out of the ground. Andrik Nortje, just too much pace, pushed him all the way back, and he was out hit wicket. I think that was the final wicket or the penultimate wicket in the Bangladesh innings. But a couple of times in the tournament so far, Nassim Ahmed has been part of the Hall of Fame, and in he goes again today. It is freezing cold now in London. While I've been talking, I've been shivering away. Tomorrow might be a night for the big coat. And when we come back tomorrow, Matty, it'll be New Zealand playing Scotland in the first game, which really is all about net run rate. That's in Dubai. And the second game, India-Afghanistan, which you'll be at, that's back at the Sheikh Zayed. And I tell you what, India, it's fairly clear, isn't it? If they lose to Afghanistan, it's tournament over.
Yeah, so I'm actually doing the first one. I'm in Dubai for almost the warm-up act for New Zealand Scotland. I think as you say, sadly that's probably going to be a relatively low-key game. I don't think there's going to be a huge number of fans in the middle of the afternoon sunshine. Maybe a few will soak up some rays or something like that. But there's not much Tartan Army out here as far as I can tell. And obviously, a tough place to get to from New Zealand. It's a tough thing to get back into New Zealand, probably more pertinently at the moment. The big game is the evening one, as you say. India could go out if they lose. With sort of, I think everyone, apart from India's fans, is praying for Mujibur Rahman's fitness after he missed their last game, because I think he's a huge. He's a huge in if he comes back into the side, it'd be great to see Rashid Khan go up against a lot of the guys he's played against and had success against in the IPL as well in that game. So it's one of those where, weirdly, I think in terms of the tournament permutations, it doesn't necessarily help Afghanistan that much to win, which sounds ridiculous, but I think in terms of spectacle and narrative, with everything that's going on around the tournament and more generally, it would be quite something for them to even run India close, to be quite honest. So fingers crossed we get a couple of thrillers.
Matt Roller, good on you for coming on. Everyone can find you on Twitter and all your excellent writing at ESPN Cricinfo. You've done a stellar job tonight there from Dubai. This has been day 11 of the Final Word Daily, this 2021 T20 World Cup. Join us tomorrow on day 12 when I'll be back with Jeff. Good night.